Could you please stand for the Chairman of the Council?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, councillors, members of the public. Now, as always, my first duty is to remind you of the fire exits, which are down in front of me and, of course, behind. Mobile phones turned off. And I will ask my chaplain, the Reverend Guy Bridgewater, to say prayers. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you. Let us pray. Dear God and loving Father, thank you for all who are gathered here this evening. Thank you for your many blessings in our district. Thank you for the gift of life itself, for the measure of good health that we receive to fulfill our callings. Thank you for our partnership in serving together and for the honour of bearing our various responsibilities in this community. I give thanks this evening for all the hard work dedicated to preparing the agenda for this particular meeting. I pray for all who will be affected by the decisions that are made, asking that their representatives in this council may serve them wisely and faithfully. Tonight I pray especially for God's blessing upon all our fellow residents and future residents, for our parish councils and planning authorities, for local property developers and building contractors, for first-time buyers and all who find it difficult to get a mortgage, for all concerned to establish sustainable communities and to safeguard our much-cherished environment. I pray for decisions that truly serve the common good as best can be achieved. We may build communities which promote human dignity and a sense of true belonging, and which bring peace, stability and well-being for all. I ask your gracious blessing upon this meeting of the Council, upon all its work and deliberations. In the name of God, Father, Son and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Now, first of all, apologies for absence. I've got Dr. David Skip. Are there other... Councillor Ritchie?
Yes, Councillor U10.
Yes, yes. Any other apologies? In which case we'll move on to pages 1 to 6, which are the Council minutes of the 4th of September, seems a long time ago now, 4th of September 2013. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 4th of September 2013 be approved as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Colwell. Are you all agreed that I may sign the minutes as a correct record? Thank you. To receive any declarations of interest from members. Now, there is an issue about item 9D, which involves those members of the District Council who are also members of parish councils. And I believe there is the possibility of a blanket dispensation that would enable people who are in that position to speak and vote, notwithstanding that this would normally be an interest that would prevent such participation. And I believe a proposal is going to be made. Yes. Now, we need first of all to do, if those people who are affected, and of course anyone else who has an interest, if they would declare them, please. Take them on.
Have they keep their hands up?
Yes, if you could keep your hands up just for a moment and we'll...
To clarify, is this in 9?
Yes, are all of you in the position of your interest being relevant to item 9D?
Yeah.
Good.
D.
D. Yes. It is. Right,
Okay, done.
fine. Has anybody got, apart from those people, are there any interest to be declared? Councillor David Sheldon.
Chairman, I wonder if we might also have some clarity on item 9C. Since the advice that's been given around item 9D refers to grants to parish councils, item 9C will clearly have a significant impact on the county council's budget in terms of the return from rates, and therefore it seems to me it's a very similar situation, and those that are county councils might also have to declare interest and might also like a dispensation.
Well, I've got a feeling this might affect me as well. I'll just take advice from the monitoring officer. That might be the easiest way to do it. Okay, so we've decided that this will affect those of us who are county councillors as well. So perhaps all of you who, that's 3 of us to 4 of us, yes. Well, do you want to... I'm going to call on Councillor Ray Dorr to move a motion on this subject.
Thank you, Chairman. As we've seen, there are a large number of dual-hatted members here. To enable their particular expertise and knowledge to be available for our consideration, members may be minded to grant a dispensation to those members who have declared interest and to enable them to both speak and vote on the items. I'm referring here to items 9C and 9D. Such matters would usually be considered by the Standards Committee on giving a 14-day notice, but in view of the urgency, I am proposing the Council grants a dispensation tonight to those members who have declared an interest in 9C and 9D on the grounds that granting the dispensation will be in the interest of persons living in the Horsham district. Could I also recommend that the issue of dispensation and dual-hatted membership is considered by the Standards Committee as part of the local standards regime review which is currently taking place?
Thank you. I'll call on Councillor Helena Croft to second the motion.
Thank you, Chairman. I second that motion.
Now, would members indicate if they approve and support the motion?
Can those of us involved vote?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not going to, though.
think that's carried. Those against?
Yes. Anyone against?
It's carried.
That's carried. Thank you very much. Yes. Councillor Peter Burgess.
Could I just confirm that that also covers all members which have a DPI besides any other interest, because that obviously could carry a criminal charge?
Chairman,
Yes,
monitoring officer confirms that's the case.
Yeah. Councillor Sue Rogers.
Yes, I just feel like, as well as, thank you for the dispensation, but I just wanted to mention that I am Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee at Steyning Parish Council. I just wanted to make it clear that I have a role with regard to finance, if that's still okay. I'm looking to the monitoring officer.
Yeah. Okay. The monitoring officer seems quite content.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other interest to be declared? Now, Chairman's announcements. Just to remind you all that there's an extra council meeting on the 22nd of January. If my arithmetic serves me correctly, we're likely to have a council meeting every month, more or less in the first half of next year, for a variety of reasons. But there is, of course, to start with, the extra council meeting on the 22nd of January. Secondly, I'd like to thank all those who supported the community carol service last night, which seems to have gone down well and was well attended. And thank you to those of you who supported it, and particularly to Councillor George Copman, who played a major part in putting it all together. I'd also like to say that we are making grants from the Chairman's Trust. We've had a meeting of the trustees this afternoon, and we are making donations to people in need via the Salvation Army, Age Concern and Saxon Weald. And a number of people will benefit from the funds that we have in the Chairman's Trust. Leaders' announcements. Cabinet members' announcements. Councillor Jonathan Chowan.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of small items. I don't know if anyone was aware of this, but the Horsham Museum was the 13th most visited free attraction in the southeast of England. So that's not just the coastal areas. That goes up into Oxfordshire and right round this part of the country. So quite an achievement for our beloved museum. And also the Panto starts tomorrow. I hope you have all got your tickets, because I know every one of you in this room is enthusiastic about the capital and the great work it does. So coming to the Panto is a small price to pay, and the Chairman would be delighted to see any more members who want to come on Friday for the Chairman's evening at the Panto as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other Cabinet members? Chief Executive's announcements. Thank you very much. Then we move on to public question time, and we have a number of members of five. Well, there was going to be five, but it's... Councillor Chan, could you turn off your microphone? Thanks. We were going to have five, but we've now got four because Mr. Fuller can't be with us. So it's 2 minutes for the initial question. If those asking questions could keep to that, please. And then I will invite the relevant Cabinet member to give an answer. And one supplementary question can be asked so long as it is arising directly out of the original question or the reply from the Cabinet member. So I'm going to call first of all on Mrs. Sheila White. Can I just say to those who are asking questions, you don't feel that you have to read out your question because it is on the order paper and everyone in this chamber has a copy of the order paper and the question on it. I'm not stopping anyone from reading out their question, but it is not necessary. You can, if you want, just say as on the order paper. Yes?
This is a question for Councillor Claire Vickers. Given the overwhelming opposition to the North Horsham development plan, as evidenced by the well-reasoned and well-researched objections produced during the consultation process, and given also the recent change in local circumstances, for example, the imminent departure of Novartis, will you now take this opportunity to pause, call a halt to driving this scheme forward, and commit to devising fresh plans for housing development in Horsham District so that there may be some consensus as to the way forward?
Yes, just to say that I'm going to ask the Cabinet Member, Councillor Claire Vickers, to answer, but I'm also giving her a dispensation so that she can give the reply sitting. So,
Thank you very
Claire
much,
Vickers.
Chairman. I do appreciate that. Thank you, Mrs White, for your question. I appreciate all the effort and involvement shown in the process by those people who have responded to the Council's preferred strategy. There are indeed a large number of representations which bring up a number of matters which concern people. And also there are areas that require clarification and further explanation. However, unlike strategies in the past, this is not, as you suggest in your question, just about housing development. We need a strategy that conforms with government policy and includes a plan supporting economic growth. If it does not, then whether you agree with that policy or not, it will fail and it will leave us vulnerable for a longer period to developer-led proposals. Of course, further work will be needed to be undertaken on the plan before submission to the government. But no comments that I have read, and I've personally read many hundreds, both on the website and in letters, which lead me to suggest that we should abandon our policy. The plan we are preparing is for economic growth. It is not just a housing plan.
Mrs White, do you want to ask a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Yes, for the benefit of the general public, can you confirm whether or not you have reached any agreement, whether verbal or written, with Liberty regarding the possible development of land north of Horsham that's residential and business, and if so, the exact nature of that agreement?
I can confirm there are no formal agreements with Liberty at all.
No. I'm afraid you're allowed one supplementary and we must stick to the procedures in fairness to everyone else. So thank you for your question. Can I now ask Dr. Geoffrey Richardson, please, to come forward? Dr. Richardson, do you want to ask your question or do you want to just simply say it's on the order?
I sure do, Chairman.
Right.
The reason for that is that the people behind won't have seen what you've got on the paper in front of you.
Okay, Dr. Richardson, if you'd like to ask your question, and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Right, there we are. Can you hear me, Chairman?
I can hear you. Thank
you,
Dr.
good.
Richardson.
All council members will have received a document from a group of residents setting out why we believe the current document, which is 9A on your agenda, gives an incomplete and biased picture of the responses received and posted on Horsham District Council's website. Reading the responses, we know that the majority of respondents for most of the policies registered objections. Could the Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning explain the objective methodology and criteria used to produce the summary and explain why she thinks the summary presented to councillors is fit for purpose and how many hours of staff time did this take?
Thank you, Dr. Richardson. I'll ask the Cabinet Member, Councillor Claire Vickers, to give you a response.
Thank you, Dr. Richardson. Thank you very much for your question. As you point out, if anyone wishes to read every comment on the website, they can do so. The report is intended simply as a summary of those comments that were submitted highlighting the main issues. The purpose of making the report to Council this evening is purely to give an indication of the key issues that have arisen. The views set out in it are not those of this Council, and the summary does not give any commentary on how particular matters will be taken forward. That is for a later stage. The production of the report was undertaken by members of the Strategic Planning team as part of their overall work. The number of hours worked on it has not been separately quantified, though clearly a consultation like this creates a period of very intense activity, and we've had officers throughout the consultation period working very hard on it. Their work included reading, inputting, summarising and drafting the summary on this agenda.
Dr. Richardson, would you like to ask a supplementary?
Yes, I just find that explanation totally unsatisfactory, and indeed the document is flawed. And I will proceed with the question, Chairman, which says, if this paper currently before the Council is not to be redone, but will be used to inform the preparation of the proposed strategy before Council in March, will all councillors, being aware of flaws that we have identified and quantified and evidenced in that paper that was sent to all members, be given a free vote on the proposed strategy when it comes before Council in 2014?
Councillor Claire Vickers.
Dr. Richardson, I am perfectly happy to check the consultation responses have been correctly inputted onto the website, and I am happy that the work that has been done is accurate. If you have evidence that is otherwise, I would be very happy to see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Richardson. Dr. Richardson, thank
Chairman,
you for your supplementary.
you can throw me out, Chairman. I asked a question. I haven't had an answer.
You have had an answer.
No,
Dr.
I haven't,
Richardson.
Chairman. I asked if there would be a free vote on this issue when it comes before the Council.
If you continue
I will.
to show no respect for this Council...
Well, you're not showing respect to me, sir. I pay for you to be where you are.
I shall adjourn this meeting. This meeting is adjourned.
Right. Brilliant.
Clear the chamber, please.
They all agree with me. They all think
Clear the chamber. I am now going to try and reconvene this meeting. I would ask those in the public gallery to show some respect for the office of chairman and also for the members of this council, all of whom have been directly, constitutionally and democratically elected, and they're entitled to be treated with respect. And I have the power as chairman to have people ejected and to close this meeting, to adjourn this meeting and have the public gallery cleared. And we've been in contact with the police, and I won't hesitate to use those powers if I have to. The members of this council are entitled to be treated with respect, and I shall insist on it. Now, if we can move on to the question from Mr. Fuller. As I indicated earlier, Mr. Fuller couldn't be with us, so I'm going to read his question and I'm going to ask the Cabinet member to respond. Almost 1,000 children are being bussed out of Southwater every day to secondary schools in Horsham town. This cannot be in the children's best interests, and nor is it environmentally friendly or financially sound. If the Cabinet member for strategic planning does not find that statistic compelling, then the need for a local secondary school in Southwater to serve local children has already been recognised by the local education authority, West Sussex County Council. They say Southwater is the largest built-up area in West Sussex not served by a dedicated secondary school. And there's a reference here to Planning School Places 2013, page 49. Councillor Claire Vickers is Councillor for Southwater, Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning, and the architect of the Cabinet's draft development plan, which she put to Council on the 25th of July 2013. Please can she explain her logic in choosing North Horsham for a secondary school rather than Southwater, given that the distance between Southwater and the Rusper roundabout would be a 16-mile round trip each day? Councillor Claire Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for reading that out on behalf of Mr. Fuller. I'm happy to give a verbal response this evening in front of the members here and the members of the public, but I will send a copy of that response to Mr. Fuller so he has it in writing. I've researched the points that he raised as a point for clarification and found that 604 children, in fact, travel out of Southwater for secondary education. This isn't particularly unusual, however, as children travel out from other villages in the district to go to secondary schools, i.e. places like Henfield. Having said that, as all members will know, and contrary to the suggestion, I do not choose where schools will go. That's the job for West Sussex County Council as the education authority, which has recommended that secondary school provision is provided with strategic development. The County Council has submitted a representation in response to the preferred strategy that outlines its requirements for land north of Horsham. This representation also includes the requirement for 2 sites to be provided for primary schools to include early years and community facilities, a site to be provided for special school with a minimum of 60 places for 2 to 19-year-olds, and a financial contribution for post-education after 16.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. If we can now move on to the next question, which is Mr. Chris Morris. If Mr. Chris Morris will please come down and be ready to ask his question again in a maximum of 2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a question for the Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning. The Cabinet's draft preferred strategy for North Horsham includes a new Horsham Parkway station with parking at a cost to the developer in the order of multi-millions of pounds. The number of affordable homes at Kings Hill is 25%, and Horsham District Council's overall policy is to achieve 40%. Does the Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning accept that if Liberty is required to build a multi-million-pound railway station, that this capital cost, which comes from the overall pot, would mean the percentage of affordable houses is reduced and will in fact be less than even the minimum 20% that are suggested in Draft Policy 14?
Councillor Claire Vickers.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Morris, for your question. If development goes ahead on land north of Horsham, the provision of a railway station would be paid for by the developer. I confirm that the Council retains the objective of achieving the highest amount of affordable housing possible across the district, and we are looking at new and innovative ways of doing this. The key, though, is to focus on providing the best mix of housing that meets the objectively assessed housing needs for the future and current population. One innovation in particular has been highlighted at North Horsham is to include up to 250 self-build houses as part of the mix to make a balanced community.
Mr Morris, you're entitled to ask a supplementary question now, arising directly out of the question or the reply you've just heard.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to do so, although I wonder if there is any point, because my previous question wasn't answered. However, does the Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning accept that even if Network Rail agreed to have a new station stop so close to Littlehaven and Horsham stations, no guarantee can be given that a Horsham Parkway station will ever be built, as Liberty can, at a later stage, seek a change in planning condition based on future revised economic case?
Councillor Claire Vickers.
Everybody knows in reality nothing is ever guaranteed for anything. Excuse me. However, they are very determined that a station would help everybody in the northern part of Horsham. There is an oversubscription at Littlehaven and Horsham. There's lack of parking there. And it's in everybody's best interest, the new community and Horsham as a whole, to have a new Parkway station. So I know they are actively seeking a business case to put to Network Rail to try and get the station agreed to go there.
Thank you. I'm disappointed to note, Chairman, that you haven't directed
Thank you, Mr Morris.
an
thank you
answer
very
is
much.
given to the question.
Mr Morris, thank you. Now, can I call on Mr Harry Shutt, please, to come and ask his question, again within the maximum of 2 minutes, please. Thank you, Mr Shutt.
This is another question for the Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning. Horsham District Council in 2009 commissioned leading commercial consultants GVA Grimley to address why Horsham has so many empty office buildings and the future need for any commercial space in the district and Horsham town. The independent consultant's report concludes that the Crawley, Horsham and Mid-Sussex Employment Land Review, Atkins 2006, provides an assessment of the existing office locations within Horsham as of 2005 and recognises the general high quality of both existing and potential office locations, with 79% rated as good and none rated as poor. That's page 5, para 2.24. Horsham has not traditionally been considered as a prime office location within the Greater South East and tends to be overshadowed by the larger centres of Crawley, which benefits from closer proximity to Gatwick Airport and easier access to the South London labour market, and Croydon. The reference is page 8, para 3.2. The oversupply of large stock is also likely to be exacerbated by the commercial attractiveness of relatively nearby centres of Crawley and Croydon. Crawley especially has a critical mass of large-scale office provision, and with faster rail links to London has established itself as the prominent office location within the sub-region. Page 20, para 4.32. The Cabinet Minister for Strategic Planning has embarked on plans for 500,000 square feet of office and industrial space in the strategic gap between Horsham and Crawley. Does the Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning accept the finding of the consultant's report? And if she does not, can she explain why GVA Grimley or another independent consultant has not been tasked with looking at the matter afresh before the Cabinet Member advocated the need for 500,000 square feet of business space?
Councillor Claire Vickers.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for your question, Mr Shutt. You're absolutely right. We do need to have up-to-date and relevant evidence. The report that you mentioned was a study which was completed in 2009 and was undertaken in a different political and economic environment. The world has certainly changed since then, and we have seen the worst world recession for modern times. So that is why, along with Mid Sussex and Crawley Borough Councils, we have engaged an independent consultant, Nathaniel Litchfield and Partners, to review existing employment land and evaluate our available options for future growth, particularly since the government's national planning policy framework has economic development at its heart. This report will be published in the very near future. Initial findings indicate that there is a gap in the market for high-quality, modern business space that would typically work in an out-of-town location. As for the older stock, these sites do not reflect modern working practices. They were built before the widespread use of the internet and so do not meet modern technological needs. Without redevelopment, this stock is unlikely to be able to effectively contribute to meeting the future needs of the district. Redevelopment can only take place where it is viable to do so. The National Planning Policy Framework encourages the conversion of redundant office floor space to alternative uses where appropriate.
Mr Shutt, you have the opportunity to ask a supplementary.
Well, I have, and I will put it, but I have to point out, like some of my predecessors, my question was not answered.
If you would just ask your supplementary, please.
Horsham District Council, my supplementary question is as follows. Is the Cabinet Member aware that the Gatwick Diamond Initiative indicates in its local strategic statement that it foresees no significant need for new employment space other than for warehousing or distribution in the area as a whole? That's the Gatwick Diamond area, and certainly not outside the Crawley-Gatwick Airport Red Hill corridor.
I am aware of that statement, but we've had representations from the Gatwick Diamond supporting the strategy that we're pursuing. I've also had conversations with the Coastal Capital Local Enterprise Partnership and with the Gatwick Diamond Initiative, and they are confident that with the right product, this would be an ideal location for business to relocate to.
Thank you very much, and thank you for those questions. Now, if we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is members' questions on notice, and I'm advised that no questions from members have been received. If we can move on now to the minutes of committees. We need to receive the minutes of a number of meetings. First of all, the Standards Committee of the 25th of September 2013. And I invite Councillor Brian Donnelly, Chairman of the Committee, to present the minutes. Thank you, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chairman. I present to Council the Standard Committee minutes 25 September 13, and you'll find them pages 7 to 12. There are no recommendations, it's merely to note. I'll go through them page by page and take questions page by page if there are any. On page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, and page 12. There's no questions, but I just would like to bring to the attention of members, as they, I'm sure, are already aware, but I want to highlight it. On page 9, the local standards regime, the review 1 year old on. You will recollect that you gave instructions to Standards Committee to review the regime after a year, and as I'm sure you know, it is underway, I merely bring it to your attention again so that if you have any questions or points of view or suggestions to make, we will receive them with great welcome at the Standards Subcommittee. I already have had some questions from some members. As I said, there'll probably be about one more subcommittee meeting, and then the recommendations will go to the full Standards Committee, which will give it another chance to get cleaned up, tidied up, and thereafter it will be presented to yourselves over the next probably 2.5 months for your approval or otherwise. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. Now, if we can move on now to pages 13 to 20, and the Accounts, Audit and Governance Committee of the 25th of September. I'm going to ask Councillor David Holmes to present the minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. As you pointed out earlier, these notes are fairly old now, and we have had another Accounts, Audit and Governance Committee very recently. You'll see I'm happy to take any questions as we go through. On page 13, you'll see that the external auditor anticipated issuing an unqualified audit opinion and to conclude that the Council had made proper arrangements to ensure economy, efficiency and effectiveness in its use of resources. In fact, at our last meeting, we did get the audit letter, and that has all been confirmed. So what you see there is indeed what's happened. So happy to take questions on page 13, 14. You'll see on page 15, just above where it's above halfway, you'll see that we consider the annual governance statement, and I, as chairman, did suggest that consideration should be given to a couple of areas in the annual governance report. The report did make a very firm statement about the good morale of the staff within the council, and given that they've been put under quite a bit of stress with various changes lately and changes to come, I did indicate that the chief executive and leaders should give careful consideration to that in the future. And secondly, there's quite a lot of reference to the sustainable community strategy, which is brought into being by the Horsham District Community Partnership. That's mentioned a lot in the annual governance statement, and that's been quite quiet of recent months, and again that needs consideration by the Chief Executive and Leader. If there are no questions on 13, 14, 15, I'll move on to 16. You'll be pleased to see on 16 we received, as we always do, a quarterly update report, and on this occasion all four audits that have been carried out were judged with the result of having the overall audit opinion was that substantial assurance could be given, and that's a good result. We have had moderate assurance on areas of internal audit in the past. To get four that were all given substantial assurance is to be welcomed. You'll see on page 17 we reviewed the risk management report. The committee was asked to take 3 risks out of the risk report. We agreed to 2 of them being taken out because those risks have been addressed. There was another risk there, CRR 39, which was in order to be alert to the possibility of low morale of workforce or withdrawal of goodwill as a result of the Terms and Conditions review. We're pleased to see that the Terms and Conditions review has been completed successfully, but we didn't think that should come out given the fact that there are other changes which the staff are going to be affected by. And in fact, CRR 39 has been redrafted to take account of the Hay pay banding review and the business transformation and commissioning and I think organisation structure that's going on. So if there's no comments or questions on 16, 17, page 18. Sorry.
Yes, Councillor Donnelly.
You mentioned that these minutes, of course, are a wee bit old now, so it may have been resolved. But page 16, it talks of a long-term sickness in the department, and as this is a key department, I inquire if that's been resolved, and if not, what's going to happen?
Councillor Holmes.
Yes, you're referring to the temporary shortfall in resources within the audit department. Yes, we did discuss that again at our recent meeting, and the auditor is satisfied with the resources that he's got at the moment. As part of the budget process, there is a review taking place to just reconfirm whether the resources in audit are satisfactory. We did question the auditor on why there was a delay in, it refers here to a gap between the departure of a member of the audit team and the commencement of employment of a replacement. We did question that. We were concerned that may have been due to lack of resource within personnel. We were assured that there was no problem in terms of personnel. They'd found the right person, but they had to honour the fact that this person was due some leave and they had to have some leave, and that was why there was a gap. But we do question the internal auditor very carefully at every meeting of this committee to confirm whether or not the resources are adequate, and the situation seems at the moment to be satisfactory. On page 18, the report isn't explicit, but it says that 2 specific areas of concern were highlighted by the Chief Internal Auditor, and it refers to reports 635 and 636 at the bottom there. In case you're curious as to what that is, one of those is related to information security and the need for appropriate practices to be used by staff and members so that confidentiality is protected. The other one relates to the problem of fuel loss many months ago at Hop Host and the implementation of measures to prevent that happening again. There's a further thing there that you might want to understand at the very bottom of that page. It refers to report 624. There was a mention in one of the documents that where 106 money wasn't coming forward, entries were being deleted from the database. We were concerned about that, but we were reassured. All it relates to is that sometimes we give planning permission and then the developer decides not to implement. So where it's clear that that development isn't going to take place, obviously there's not much point us sitting around waiting for the money to come in, because it never will. So they're the entries that are being removed. So they are the reports. Happy to take any questions, any further questions.
Are there any further questions? If not, thank you very much, Councillor Holmes. If we can move on now to pages 21 to 26, which is the Census Joint Committee of the 27th of September 2013, and I invite Councillor Gordon-Lindsay, Chairman of the Joint Committee, to present the minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to remind you what Census is, it's a joint venture between Horsham, Mid Sussex, Ada and Worthing councils. The shared services are council tax and benefits rates collection, council tax and housing benefit payments, and IT. Worthing Council only participates in the shared IT services. Mid Sussex is responsible for managing the revenues and benefits service, and Horsham is responsible for managing the IT service. Census has now been in operation for around 8 years. Overall, the venture has worked well, and the participating councils have seen cost reductions over the years. However, this year there have been a number of issues. As previously reported a year ago, Worthing lost some of its IT capabilities because it was operating with out-of-date hardware and software. But the immediate problems have now been resolved, but work is still ongoing to strengthen backup and recovery systems. The government, in its wisdom, has introduced a new ultra-secure public services network. This is to enable the distribution of social services and other data to relevant parties like district councils. From what I can see, the system has been designed to meet the needs of MI5 and probably also GCXQ and maybe also the American security services. Anyway, as a result of this, the operating procedures are so tight and cumbersome that Census, along with many other district councils, have not been able to pass the tests to be able to access the system, despite spending tens of thousands of pounds and disrupting our email systems. The problem is ongoing, but I'm told that we're anticipating that we'll be told that we've passed our tests and achieved compliance by Christmas. The additional work that we've had to undertake to achieve compliance means that we have not progressed as quickly as possible on other census projects. I have to say, having worked in the IT business and the banking business for many, many years, I've never ever seen a system like this public services network. I mean, the government has really, really gone overboard, and I just can't believe what I'm seeing. And we're all paying the price. Well, it's not us that's paying the price, but councils all over the country are paying the price to be able to access data in the government. I know things have got to be secure, but this really has gone overboard. Anyway, coming back to census again, processing times for new claims and benefits are continuing to be satisfactory. Some customers continue to have difficulties with having telephones answered, and a new telephone system is being implemented to help alleviate these problems. To date, the Council has committed 47% of its discretionary housing money that it has received this year. 85 residents have received help for the reduction in benefit from under-occupancy, 7 for the benefit cap, and 21 for other hardship issues. The benefits team continues to work with the Council's housing department and our social security landlords to identify benefit customers in need of help. We are currently awarding about 5 new claims a week, and our social landlords anticipate that the cumulative impact of reduced benefit will keep up demand throughout the rest of the year. If anyone's got any questions, feel free to fire away.
Yes, Councillor David Sheldon.
Thank you, Chairman. Council wouldn't be the same if I didn't ask a question about direct housing payments, would it? And I'm sorry if I begin to sound like a broken record. Cabinet members made reference to the latest figures and a percentage spend. I didn't quite catch this percentage spend, but I think it's probably around 50% of our budget so far through the year. But that's only, as I understand it, part of our budget. The figures I have is that actually we have access to at least another £180,000. And so with the figures I had, which were at the end of, I believe, October, we'd only spent actually 16% of our budget, or 16% of our allowable spend, not necessarily the budget, but the allowable spend, which is something like £300,000. So I wonder whether the Cabinet member would consider asking the benefits team to look again at the outstanding cases. There are a number of cases, and I won't quote the figures because maybe that's not something that we should be sharing here, but there are a number of outstanding cases on our books which are potentially facing eviction, and by my calculation, if we were to use the money that we have access to, we could potentially fund all of them. I'm not saying that that's appropriate, but there are a considerable number of families who are currently facing the risk of eviction, and we have money sitting in our accounts that we have access to that we could spend. I can provide the Cabinet member with my figures, and we can argue over them maybe at a separate stage. But would he consider looking again at whether it is appropriate to provide funding to those cases, to secure people in their own homes, and to reduce the extra work that is being placed on the housing team in order to try and support those local residents?
Councillor Lindsay.
Yes, we'll have a look at that, and I'll send you a considered reply, and I'll copy it to all other council members.
Councillor Roger Arthur.
Thank you, Chairman. I think when the census arrangement was established, we expected to save a significant amount of money. I wonder if the Cabinet member can confirm what that figure was, how much we think we are saving and whether that figure will be sustained.
Councillor Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I don't have the figures offhand, but again, I'll ask Catherine, who's in charge of finance here, to try and estimate the savings over the years. I know they're substantial, certainly into the hundreds of thousands of pounds, and I'll get back to you.
Yes, Councillor David Sheldon.
Thank you, Chairman. I have another question on another area, and I wonder whether members would join me effectively in urging the Cabinet member to make strongest representations possible as to the negative impact on the members' ability to perform their duties effectively because of the overly stringent levels of security that are being required simply for us to access our emails. And I know, Chairman, that you've had the same problem that I've had, and I know that other members too. So maybe around the chamber we could urge the Cabinet member to do whatever he can, because, quite frankly, I'm unable to access my emails effectively and I can't do my job properly.
Well, thank you, Councillor Sheldon. You may say that, but I couldn't possibly comment. But I'm sure Councillor Lindsay can comment.
Well, maybe we should send a letter to Francis Maud, who's in charge of the Cabinet Office, who's in charge of this particular project. I mean, like you, I've been severely affected, and I just can't believe what we're having to go through. So, perhaps, I think, in fact, I think we've already sent a letter to some senior people in government, but I'll find out what has been done and see if there's anything more can be done. But I do sympathise with you and everyone else who's had email problems. In fact, I think it's an absolute disaster.
Councillor Brian Donnelly.
On a point of information, Francis Maud, a few months ago, it was in the press, he was as fed up as we are with the system and the layers of security that he set up his own system within the Cabinet Office.
Councillor David Holmes.
Yes, this subject did come up at the Accounts, Audit and Governance Committee that we had recently, and we expressed the hope that once we've got this PSN approval, that then the IT department can look carefully at our systems in order to make them more robust and more user-friendly without negating what we've done in terms of security.
Yes. Councillor Raydor.
Yes, thank you, Ron, for that. Just to confirm that I've asked that the head of IT produce a report recommending how we go forward on this. I've made him very aware of the members' concerns. They've been expressed to me on many occasions. I think it's vital that we do something about this, so I await that report, which I'm told will be with us very soon.
Thank you for that. If we can move on now to pages 27 to 32. These are the minutes of the Licensing Committee of the 7th of November 2013. I'm going to invite Councillor Christian Mitchell to present the minutes and also move 3 recommendations which are contained in those minutes. Councillor Christian Mitchell.
Chairman, thank you. There are 3 recommendations. They aren't controversial, and it may be, Chairman, unless members have any objections, they could all be taken on block. But if there's any murmurs now, Chairman, then they could be taken separately. But did anyone wish to ask a question on any of them and to take a vote separately? I think the answer is no. So the recommendations there are as printed on 2 recommendations on pages 28, LI 10 and 11, and page 30. And the recommendations are as printed, so they will be moved, and I will propose that and vote it on block.
Okay, well, I'm happy to take those recommendations on block, as long as there's no... everyone's happy with that. If so, can I ask whether those recommendations are approved? Thank you. Now, if we can move on to pages 33 to 38. Councillor Godfrey Newman.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually wanted, for a change, to thank the officers for including the information about agendas in these various committees we've just been hearing about. The other useful thing is the fact, of course, that if you view the Council's agenda, you can see the websites, so we can actually find all the information and easily accessible on a computer. So my thanks to the officers for doing this.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. If we can move on now, please, to pages 33 to 38. The minutes of the meeting of the Scrutiny and Overview Committee of the 9th of September 2013, and later on pages 39 to 49, the minutes of the meeting of the Scrutiny and Overview Committee of the 11th of November 2013, and I invite Councillor George Cockman, Chairman of the Scrutiny and Overview Committee, to present these minutes. Thank you, Councillor Cockman.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, like some of the other reports, the September one is a long time ago. I think probably we can take that page by page and comment if you want to. Page 33, 34, 35, 36 and 37. On page 38, you see when we were discussing possible items in the work programme, the issues that, some of the issues that Councillor David Sheldon has been talking about this evening were raised, and that has been hovering over the work programme at some time. It may well be that that is an option that we pursue in following up what we've just heard from Councillor Lindsay. So I present those set of notes and now move to the 11th of November on page 39. The main issue that I'm sure all councillors will be aware of, running through these two reports and quite widely in working groups, has been the issue of development planning. At page 39, we were lucky enough to have the Chief Executive with us on this meeting, and he went through page 40, 41, the background and current thinking on the planning department. And then we come to the Business Improvement Working Group, which had dealt specifically with this. That's on page 41. And over the page.
Yes, Councillor Cockman, can I just ask Councillor Claire Vickers, who wants to ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for letting me stay seated. It's not a question, it's just a statement. It's really to say thank you very much to the Business Improvement Working Group for all the work they've done with regards to reviewing development management. And I'm pleased to say that the consultation is still ongoing and it fits in with the Cabinet's proposals. So I'd just like to thank all members of Business Improvement Working Group for the immense amount of work they put into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cockman.
Thank you. I'm sure Councillor Brown O'Connell will pass that on to his committee. He has led it with a lot of enthusiasm and personally done a great deal of work for it. It's very nice as well to have that comment from Councillor Vickers, very timely, because I was going to say there has been, or is happening now, a congruence of ideas from the working group, from the executive, and from Councillor Vickers herself. So you have in front of you the recommendations which have been passed to Cabinet. And at the next Council meeting, hopefully, I will be able to present the January notes from scrutiny, which will also include the responses of Cabinet to those recommendations.
Councillor Holmes?
Yes, can I just make a comment on page 42? You'll see in the middle of page 42 it says that it was suggested that it may be more efficient and cost effective to outsource Section 106 agreements. It doesn't say what aspect of 106 agreements they were thinking of outsourcing, whether it was just the preparation of legal documents and the progression of those or what it was, but I just would make the comment that we have had problems around Section 106 for many years in this Council, and there's been problems in terms of members knowing what's going on, knowing what the 106 agreement will say for a development in their ward, that sort of thing. And I would urge that if anything is outsourced, we must try and maintain and improve the involvement of members, not actually put things at arm's length. So I just wanted to make that point. But maybe Councillor Cotman can tell me what was intended by that comment. What were you looking to outsource?
Councillor Cotman.
Let me just invite Councillor O'Connell to say he had most to do with this, and I don't know, he might make a more helpful comment than I could.
Councillor O'Connell.
Thank you, Councillors. The discussions around the Section 106 agreements revolved mainly on the instructions received from the Planning Department, the processing of the application, the negotiation of the application, and the enforcement and the timing of collecting the money. In line with the recommendations of the group and the Cabinet's recommendations and the work done by the Executive, hopefully the suggestions and the improvements that will happen to the instruction will improve the whole process. But this is not the first time these reviews have been carried out in planning, and hopefully they'll work. One of the final recommendations of the Improvement Working Group was that we should review this again in 6 months' time to monitor the changes that have been made and hopefully monitor the improvement and the performance of the whole department. We've looked at the costs as part of the review and the structure, and it may be that in 6 months' time we come back and say the whole thing should be outsourced. That's not off the agenda, and it shouldn't be off the agenda. This whole function, the planning, in conjunction with the legal, must work hand in hand and efficiently. And it must be productive. So, with regard to the 106, the suggestion that we outsource it, it may be that the whole, if we can't get it right, the whole thing's outsourced, from negotiation, production of the 106 agreement, getting the thing signed and collecting the monies in due time. So the big thing really is to review this again in 6 months, see if our recommendations are working and having the desired effect, and if not, then maybe we look at outsourcing the whole function, because it's something that should not be taken off the agenda yet.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connell. Councillor George Cotman.
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Councillor O'Connell. That was a very important point about the review in 6 months. But I would repeat that, say that all these working group meetings are open to all councillors. And that was a particularly powerful working group, got through a lot of work, and I think did an excellent job, as Councillor Claire Vickers has just said. So when we are meeting again, I'll make sure that it's well broadcast in the Council. Look out for the agenda of the Business Improvement Working Group. Right, we're on to page 45 now. 46. 7. And then there's a postscript, really, in pages 48 and 49. And that's it, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor George Cotman. Now, if we can move on, please, to pages 51 to 68, which will be the report of the Cabinet Member for Living and Working Communities on the Horsham District Planning Framework Preferred Strategy Consultation. This is a summary of comments received, and we are not here to debate the substantive issue about the preferred strategy, but we're being asked tonight to receive the summary of comments. So I don't want a debate tonight on the substantive issue, but we're talking tonight just about receiving the summary of comments. But before I ask the Cabinet member to present her report, we have one member of the public who wishes to address the Council on this subject. Would Mrs. Sheila White please come forward? You have a maximum, Mrs. White, of 2 minutes in which to address the Council, and once you've finished your statement, there's no supplementary. You just return to your seat, if you wouldn't mind, in the public gallery. So you have 2 minutes, Mrs. White, to make a statement. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, councillors, I'd like to address agenda item 9A. This report, which is based on what is generally accepted to have been a flawed consultation process, is dismissive of people's concerns and in no way does justice to the overwhelming local opposition to the North Horsham development plan. The consultation seems to have been just a tick-box exercise along the road to the implementation of a predetermined developer-led plan. People fear that agreements with landowners and the developer have already been made behind closed doors by certain councillors. Members of the Council, if you don't have the time to read the raw data of the consultation responses on your own website, I would urge you please to at least read the well-argued and well-researched contribution from the highly respected Horsham Society. It pretty much says it all. Since this ill-conceived plan was first mooted, there have been some changes in Horsham. For example, the imminent departure of Novartis. This will leave a strategically placed site which invites a mix of residential and business development of the type envisaged for our green fields north of Horsham. Some councillors have already made public their opposition to Liberty's plan. Let's hope others among you will follow their lead. Now is the time for the Council to step back from the headlong rush to accept Liberty's plans, go back to the drawing board and devise a fresh plan which spreads development across the whole district, starting with the available Brownsfield sites. A plan which does not breach the A264 boundary, nor put intolerable strain on existing infrastructure, and which leaves our treasured countryside and the all-important strategic gap untouched. You can stop your stopwatch now. Thank you. I have finished.
Now, I'm going to call on Councillor Claire Vickers, please, the Cabinet Member for Living and Working Communities, to present the report. Thank you, Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome the opportunity to present this report, which summarises the consultation responses to the Council's Horsham District Planning Framework Preferred Strategy. I do consider that public involvement in the plan-making process is really important. This was a non-statutory stage of consultation, believe it or not. The Council has and will continue to exceed the minimal requirements set out in regulations for involvement in plan preparation. We are actually only required to inform key interested parties and the community that we are preparing a plan and ask what should be included. That comes under the Town and Country Planning, Local Planning England Regulation 2012, Regulation 18. But we firmly believe that consulting on a preferred strategy was the right thing to do before moving to the next stage in the preparation of the plan, which is Regulation 19, the proposed submission. Consultation was undertaken in order to inform people and ask for their comments and views, and we've had plenty of those. so they can be considered and reflected upon in the preparation of the proposed submission of the Horsham District Planning Framework. There are a number of letters which are still being scanned and uploaded to the website, but these have all been read and are included in the summary of representations attached to the report at Appendix 2. Following concern from Save Horsham, who informed us that 6 representations were incorrectly logged, I will be ensuring that all positive representations are accurately recorded. This does not change the summary or report that's before you this evening. All letters were read and summarised in order to produce this summary. The consultation on the preferred strategy closed on the 11th of October. I considered it really important to inform members and the public of the issues that have been raised during the consultation as soon as possible, rather than waiting till we have a revised plan to put to members. That is why there is a summary report before you this evening. This is a factual summary report of the representations received for members to note. No decisions are being asked for this evening. The summary helps to highlight the issues which have been raised, which the Council needs to consider before moving forward. It's important to remember that the plan is for economic growth and is not just a housing plan. Policy 19 of the National Planning Policy Framework is quite clear, and I quote, it says, requires that planning system does everything it can to support sustainable economic growth. I will be working closely with all members of this Council over the coming months before bringing a revised document to Council in April 2014 for approval for a further period of representation before we submit our plan to the Government for independent examination in the autumn of 2014. I ask members to receive this report and to note the contents of it. I'm happy to answer questions, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Vickers. Councillor Christine Costin.
Thank you, Chairman. Some of you may recall at the Council meeting where we allowed this consultation document to go forward, which was then the preferred options strategy, that I felt that I couldn't vote for it to be put out because I felt that there were no options within that document. Now, if we look at the responses, I think it shows very clearly why I was thinking that, because people know that there are certain options and they are putting them forward. These are genuine, well-considered objections and suggestions, because at the time I think we said that people could come forward with their suggestions about what should be done. They have done so, and I have read some of them very carefully. And I do believe that there are alternative options to what is on the table. To get this wrong could condemn Horsham, this is the north of Horsham part of that document, to a future that its residents and businesses do not support. We need to gain their support and to have their trust. And I would believe that it is our duty to listen and to investigate further. I mean, my colleagues and myself have been drawing together an alternative strategy, but I've seen the Horsham Society one, I've seen others. We need to look at them seriously and not simply think that this is the only option that was put, is before us, because I don't believe it is. I really don't.
Councillor Costin, I think you've strayed a little bit beyond our brief tonight, but I'd ask other members to bear in mind that all we're being asked to do is note the report. We're not discussing the merits of the issue, just to note the report. That's what we're doing tonight. Councillor Leonard Crosby.
Chairman, it's just a reference to the statement by the Cabinet member that this process of consultation is non-statutory. That was an interesting point. But I think the point is you've set the horses running on the basis of this consultation. And I think statements that have been made in the Council chamber tonight, some of them very agitated, nevertheless demonstrative of the concern that people have who have participated in great detail and in great length in this consultation process. So I think it's very important for us as a council to make sure that we demonstrate clearly, that's the important point, clearly that these responses have been taken into account. We can't introduce and have a process and then simply summarise the outcomes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Leonard Crosby. Councillor Roger Arthur.
Thank you, Chair. I understood that this report is for noting, therefore I have sent my comments into Barbara Childs. I don't expect her to answer all those comments this evening, and I understand we don't want to do that anyway at this stage. But assuming that we will get an opportunity to thoroughly debate the results of consultation, bearing in mind the widespread interest in the local plan, can we assume that members of the public will be able to hear the debate? I think in the interest of transparency and in the interest of the concerns of the people, I think we should revert to a democratic way of debating these issues. And I'm very happy if any member of the public wants a copy of the notes that I've sent to Barbara Childs. But I think we should have that debate in public so that everybody has a chance to see that we're not hiding anything.
Councillor Arthur, this matter will be debated before Cabinet and, of course, in Council, and it will be totally open to the public. And if we haven't got room in the public gallery, we will do what we always do on these situations. We will provide overflow facilities in the capital. Councillor John Chidlow.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd first just like to thank Councillor Vickers, the Cabinet, and all the hard work that's gone on from the Council officers. I think we're actually overlooking that. This is a tremendous document, and there's a great deal of care has gone into its production. I'd also like to support what Councillor Leonard Crosby said. I think it is very important that the transparency of this not only be there, but be seen to be there. And I think, in terms of what Roger Arthur said, Councillor Roger Arthur, I beg your pardon, Roger, I also encourage the idea of debate. I would also like to ask our residents to actually engage in this debate without shouting at us and without trying to overwhelm the procedures of this council. That will make debate possible. What we heard tonight makes debate more difficult, and I'd like to appeal to everybody to continue this discussion in the spirit of debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chidlow. Councillor Liz Kitchen.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say thank goodness that in this council chamber, at least, planning seems to transcend party political beliefs, and I personally believe that that is very healthy. And all I'm going to say is, as you well know, I don't believe in repeating myself. I entirely support the comments of Councillor Roger Arthur, that hopefully that this will be all in public.
Councillor Brian Donnelly.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to follow Councillor Chidlow and thank officers and the Cabinet member for the work done. In particular, these summary report is most valuable, and I know what a strain it has been on Officer Childs and the other planning officers, and also, of course, on the Cabinet member Claire Vickers. But you know, this hasn't just happened tonight or this month or this year. This process has been underway for many years. And in fact, I would like to thank previous officers and previous Cabinet members like Councillor Jenkins and Councillor Howard for all the work they did on it. Councillor Vickers particularly, it's great seeing her here tonight. For those who don't know it, she's got a broken arm, broken in 2 places, and it's been quite an effort for her. And also for Officer Childs, has been under huge support. And unfortunately, I think some people have perhaps taken this whole matter in a very personal manner, and it often can be very hurtful to people who are only doing their job, are totally neutral, and have no axe to grind. I am grateful for the comments from the residents of Horsham. As a councillor, they are invaluable in getting a balance into this whole matter, and it has helped me no end. I'm slightly surprised, funny enough, that it may seem like a lot of comments, but those of us who are involved with west of Horsham, it's far less comments than we got there. And also, similarly, I think it's about 6% of the potential peoples in North Horsham, or 3% of the total of the Horsham residents who've made representation. So hopefully we will get more representations with more views over the next few weeks to allow us to get a very full, detailed scenario on this. But I do say, let's not forget that there's human beings involved in this. It's hugely stressful for them. It is very difficult. And I agree with everything what Councillor Chidler said. And I again say thank you very much to Officer Childs and crew, and to also Councillor Vickers for all the very much hard work they've been doing in this area.
Councillor David Holmes.
Yes, I'd just like to point out that this exact document has been before the Cabinet Members' Advisory Group, and in fact, following that, I did submit a 4-page document highlighting some points. Within that document, and I'm not going to go through the points now, but within that document, the document we've got here today, there are a number of issues which are important and need to be addressed. And I'll just give a few examples. For example, there's the issue of the options to the preferred strategy. Now, the options were covered, and justifications for rejecting the options, I know, is covered in the sustainability report. Possibly not as well as some people might want it to, but it is covered in there. And I think it's very important that when we've finally got a submission document for whatever the proposals are, the actual submission document has got to be very explicit about why options have been rejected, and I think that could be clearer going forward. In the same way, more needs to be done to convince members and the public of the importance of economic development, and that's been mentioned already. There's the issue of, this was raised by the Southern Water, there was the issue of the capacity of water and sewage, and I think clearly that's a big question that needs to be covered shortly. The issue of the business park, a lot of people don't think we need one. I understand now that consultants have been employed to actually evaluate whether a business park is required, whether it would be viable, whether it should be bigger, whether it should be smaller. And I think that was something that was missing. So there are some things like that. I'm not going to go through all the points I raised, but there are some key points that one can pick out of this document that have got to be answered. So I look forward to hearing the answers to those during January and February.
Councillor Sheila Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to add my thanks to all the past planners and the present planners, and for the inordinate amount of work that's gone into putting this consultation together, getting it out, delivered and finally collated. However, I have to say I am very underwhelmed by the response of 1,861 responses out of the tens of thousands that make up the community of Horsham District. 1,420 were mainly addressing North Horsham. The 40-plus policies, very important policies, dealing with issues we are seeking the public comment on, serious, sensitive issues that could and may well shape the future of Horsham District, have been barely registered with the greater population. I personally feel we can assume that the vast silent majority support the way Horsham District Council is evolving and becoming the place to be. I take this as a good sign, as we have in the past had experience and would know if this wasn't the case. Happily, there were constructive comments and suggestions for us to take into consideration, but how disappointing to have this overall response when the officers and all concerned have put so much time and effort into encouraging residents to have a view prior to implementation of our policies. These are vital policies that will guide the way Horsham evolves in the future, and it concerns me that so many have ignored the wonderful opportunity we have given them to become involved in the future of our vibrant district. Therefore, Chairman, I take the low response to be a positive step for this Council.
Councillor Leonard Crosby.
Chairman, I think we need to knock on the head the statistical significance of numbers. Understand very much what Councillor Sheila Matthews has said and what Councillor Brian Donnelly has said. But when YouGov or Gallup do a poll in the UK, they take 2,000 respondents out of a population of 60 million. That's the standard statistical sample that's taken in order to judge our opinions on political parties, budgets, autumn statements, or what you will. I think people need to keep these numbers in perspective. And lastly, John citizen out there, they're not planners, they're ordinary citizens, and the numbers that we've had are, in my opinion, significant, both statistically and in reality to their response. Thank you.
Councillor Brian O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would first of all like to add my support to Councillor Matthews and Councillor Donnelly's comments with regard to the work done by the strategic planning. I think Barbara Charles and her team have done an excellent job in preparing this draft document and getting it out for consultation. Having all the comments scanned onto the website available for consultation has been a huge amount of work, and I think they should be commended for the work that's been done. On page 53, 3.2, we see the numbers Councillor Crosby referred to, 1,861 and 13 respondents. As a percentage of the district, it is still a small number, but it may well be a higher number of North Horsham. One other point that's got to be taken into consideration is 4.1. The range of issues that have been raised in the comments and detailed will be considered, and further work will be undertaken as appropriate. This plan at the moment is not a detailed plan. We're not dealing with a detailed planning application. We're dealing with a strategy for the district. And the strategy of the district and the work that's gone into this has been ongoing for years. And it's something, it's your duty as councillors, our duty to resolve this year. The danger in delaying this plan is what you're trying to achieve in not concreting over greenfield sites, to put it mildly. None of us want that. But if we don't get our plan sorted this year, the planning inspector will concrete over it for us, and we will have no say in where future development goes.
Councillor Peter Burgess.
I'd like to raise a point of order over the last speaker and others. We're not here to discuss the whole thing. We will do that in March, April, May of next year. We're here to discuss a report which has been put forward, which now summarises the inputs from local people. The second point I would raise is that there seems to be a belittling of the number of people, 1,400, 1,500. With the various polls that I've done in councils, to get that number actually responding is huge. And I think we should pay good attention to what is said. I would like to ensure that this council takes that number of people into account, and rather than says it's 3% of our population or something like that, it's just not really viable.
Thank you, Councillor Peter Burgess. Thank you also for reminding everyone of our function in relation to this item. If there are... Councillor Godfrey Newman.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with what's been said. It is, after all, quality that matters most sometimes than quantity. I just wanted to check with the Cabinet member that she will actually respond to the email that we all got from Dr Richardson, because he'd made some various points. I don't know whether he's going to be doing that at some stage in the next week or two, maybe. But also, one of the issues that brought the uproar was the fact that I have to agree, I'm afraid, with the people who asked the questions, that there was one question in particular that wasn't responded to at all in the opportunity for the supplementary question, and also the fact that she said that there was no formal agreement with Liberty. I think the word formal can be rather confusing.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Unless the Cabinet member wants to address that now, maybe would you like to address that now?
I'd just like to confirm, Councillor Newman, that I will be responding to Dr Richardson's email, and I can confirm again that there is no agreement between this Council and Liberty, formal or otherwise.
Councillor Newman.
Thank you very much indeed for that answer. There was the supplementary question that was asked by Dr Richardson as well about a free vote.
It's not for me to give an answer to that. I don't have the power to issue members of this council with a free vote. It's not something I can give them.
That answers the very question he just wanted to have answered.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments before I ask the Cabinet member to conclude? In that case, I'm going to ask Councillor Claire Vickers to wind up this debate. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you to all members who've made a contribution to this report. I do not belittle the number of respondents that have taken the trouble to write in and make very passionate feelings known. I don't take that lightly at all. But it's not the number that matters, it's the quality, as one of the councillors over there, I can't remember, said. It's definitely the quality of the responses that's important. And I can assure members that all decisions will be taken in a public forum. Okay? So I hope you will accept the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Are you all agreed that the report be noted? All agreed? Thank you. If we can now move on, please, to pages 69 to 75. This is the report of the Cabinet Member for Living and Working Communities on the continuation of arrangements for the determination of planning applications under delegation from the South Downs National Park. I don't know whether you want to wait. I'll now invite Councillor Claire Vickers to present the report, and there are recommendations on page 69 as well. Thank you. Councillor Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. It's me again. Since April 2010, this Council has been determining planning applications from the area of the South Downs National Park that lies within our district. The 3-year arrangement with the National Park is about to end, and we need to decide whether we wish to continue our involvement with the National Park or not. Under the terms of the agreement, we consider approximately 170 planning applications each year, for which we receive from the National Park an income of approximately £160,000 a year. Since 2010, 6 local authorities have chosen not to renew the delegation agreement, and in so doing they have handed over the determination of planning applications to the National Park and have had to adjust to the subsequent loss of planning income. The delegation arrangement has generally worked very well, and this report recommends to the Council that they can agree to continue with this arrangement for a further 3 years until March 2017. It is also recommended that the Head of Planning and Environmental Services should agree in consultation the terms of the delegation agreement. Agreement to continue the successful arrangement will enable this authority to continue to determine planning applications within that part of the district which lies within the South Downs National Park and to continue to receive the income to do so. I ask you to accept the recommendations, Chairman.
Yes. Councillor Diana van der Kloot.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to mention one other consideration that hasn't been mentioned in the report to this Council, and that is that the South Downs National Park Authority is in the process of drafting its own local plan, and so that will of course put additional pressures on our planning department, because at the moment, as we know, the South Downs National Park has adopted Horsham District Council's local plan to apply in this area, and that practice will then cease, and that will have additional pressures on the planning department of Horsham District Council and probably commercial implications as well. Having said that, I think that probably that is only a looming consideration, because the timescale of the South Downs National Park's local plan is that it will not come on stream until, I believe, mid-2017, in June 2017, which will be after this new agency agreement has expired. So we perhaps need to take it into account at that point. Just one other point. I think it would be very helpful if we could approach the South Downs National Park Authority and ask them to give us a presentation about their emerging local plan, as I believe they are actually giving or due to give a presentation to the South Downs network in January 2014. Thank you.
Can I just come back on that?
Yes, of course.
I absolutely agree. It would be a good idea to invite them to come and talk to us sometime, perhaps in the new year. So we will get in touch with them. Okay.
Councillor Jim Sanson.
Thank you, Chairman. The South Downs National Park invite parish councils to comment on planning applications. As far as I'm aware, there is no process for doing this. Would you like to comment, please?
The parish councils are consulted by the South Downs National Park, but they are independent. They can make their own decisions, and we have to abide by their requests. So although they do consult the parish councils, they don't have to take any notice of them.
Councillor David Sheldon.
Thank you, Chairman. I can see the benefits of retaining this piece of work in terms of being in control of planning applications across the whole of our district. But since the Cabinet member made points about the level of income that's received, do we have any idea what the level of cost is associated with it? We have financial chronicles simply based on income rather than on the costs associated with it.
I'm afraid I can't answer that, but I can certainly find out and let you know.
Councillor Godfrey Newman.
Thank you, Chairman. I take the point that's been made, but I think losing control is almost more important than anything else. And my heart goes out to the district of Chichester, where 80% of the district is within the national park. So at the moment, the only proper control they have when they're trying to do their local plan is actually around Chichester itself and up in the northeast, around Wisborough Green and Plastow and places like that. So I think it is very important that, certainly for them and for us, their percentage as well, that we don't lose complete control over what happens within the districts, especially as we are developing our own, not just for housing, but as the Cabinet member has said, for economic development.
Councillor Roger Patterson.
Chairman, just to follow up on that, I happen to be working on the figures this week for the amount of residents that we actually have within the national park. We have 3,352 residents, which actually comprises or 8.2% of our resident population. you're almost correct about Chichester. They have 76% of their population within the park. Interestingly, Arran, which you wouldn't think would be such a large number of residents, is nearly 11%, and Mid Sussex under 3%.
Councillor Brian Donnelly.
Councillor Newman correctly said Chichester has a problem and one can feel sorry for them. I think I wouldn't feel too sorry for them, because under the jolly old duty to cooperate, Chichester are already looking at us to providing housing for them, just as we know that Crawley will be looking and are looking to provide housing for us, as will Brighton and Hove. So, when we get back to our strategic plan at some stage, we've got those colossal pressures on us from these adjoining districts who will be seeking to put their houses in our district.
Thank you. Councillor Claire Vick. Sorry, yes, Councillor Roger Patterson.
Sorry, Chairman, I should have said our percentage of rural population. It's not the total population. So those figures are obviously smaller against the total population district.
Councillor Claire Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your contributions. I would like you to accept the recommendations as printed on page 69.
Are you all agreed that the recommendations, little 1 and little 2, on page 69 of the agenda should be adopted? Thank you. Now, if we can move to pages 77 to 91, which is the report of the Cabinet Member for Resources on the Council Tax Reduction Scheme, and I invite Councillor Gordon Lindsay, the Cabinet Member for Resources, to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. Prior to April 2013, the Council Tax Benefit Scheme was a national scheme, and the District Council was reimbursed by the Government for 100% of all council tax benefit payments. So we were just a post box, I guess. In Horsham District, there are over 6,500 council tax benefit claimants, and around half of these are pensioners. In April 2013, government funding was reduced by about 10%, and the remaining 90% was paid as a fixed sum to county and district councils. The District Council was required to establish its own local scheme to assess entitlement to the benefit. Due to time pressures, we agreed to stick to the old national scheme for 2013-14, and this left the cost of the benefit grant shortfall with county, district and parishes. The District Council also paid to the parishes their share of the 9% grant. Owing to a number of other small changes, the effect in parishes of the grant reduction was quite small. At the September Council meeting, it was agreed to consult on a new local scheme proposed by the cross-party Council Tax Working Group. And in summary, this protected pensioners and certain disadvantaged groups such as disabled people and single parents with children under 5, but required other payments to pay 10% of their council tax and limited the maximum benefit to tax applicable to a Band D house. That was a proposal that was drafted by the cross-party working group, and that proposal went through unchanged, and as I say, it was debated at the September Council meeting. We received 21 responses to the consultation, and the outcome of these responses is detailed in the papers. At the present time, just under 2,000 out of the 6,500 claimants will have to make a contribution to their council tax. And if anyone's got any questions, then fire away.
Yes, Councillor David Sheldon.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not going to oppose these proposals, but I am concerned that this will have a significant impact on some of the most vulnerable members in our community, I don't know whether discretionary housing payments are appropriate in this particular case. They're probably not. But I'm wondering if there will be any way that we can support those who are most badly or most negatively affected by these changes in cases where it leads to such loss of income that they are at risk of losing their homes.
Yes. Councillor Gordon-Lindsay?
Yeah, Catherine probably answered this better than me, but we have got this discretionary housing grant, and we could use some of that, I guess, to help in the really extreme cases. Have you got anything else you can add to that, Catherine?
As part of the scheme that we'll be putting together, there also will be a hardship fund amount. We need to put it forward as part of the budget proposals when they come later in the year, and the funds we propose to use for those is grants that we had received from the DWP to deal with the changes. So that will be coming forward as part of the budget proposals for Cabinet.
Yes. Councillor Helena Croft.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd just like to support the recommendations in this and just say, really to thank Catherine and the officers for the work they've done on it, and the working group. There's been a cross-party working group that's really looked at this in detail, I think, and thoroughly looked at the vulnerabilities involved to protect those who would be hardest hit. And I think this is a very good response from us, and I would really recommend it.
Councillor Roger Arthur. Microphone.
We did discuss this previously, and I must emphasise I'm not questioning the wisdom of the proposal. I think it was necessary to get move in this direction. But I think we'd always hoped that we would be monitoring the risk, and the risk is that we end up making people, or people become homeless, and we end up having to put them in bed and breakfast, which costs us a lot more money. So clearly we don't want to go into that over that hump. Now, the Cabinet member advised last time we discussed it that that had not been the experience in other local councils, and that he was therefore giving us an assurance that he didn't see that risk increasing. But what I'd like to, I think would be very useful to know is what trends are we actually monitoring to satisfy ourselves that we're not running into that risk. Thank you.
Do you want to answer that now, Councillor Lindsay?
Yeah. Well, I think when we talked about this in September, Mid-Sussex had introduced a scheme which is a lot tougher than this one, and at that time certainly they hadn't experienced an increase in housing homelessness and all that sort of thing. But as I say, there are backup funds to help to try and prevent people becoming made homeless, because the last thing we want is to have people made homeless, and we'll be doing everything in our power to stop that. And of course, if there's an increase in the number of people made homeless, then we'll have to address that particular problem when the time comes. I mean, seriously, if there's no other questions on this, then I would also endorse what Helena said about the work that was put in by the cross-party working group, because they did a really comprehensive study of this particular issue. And I'd also like to thank the officers and the census people, because it's the census people that'll have to do an awful lot of the work in implementing this. So I'd like to thank them and everyone who's been involved in this. And then can I ask you to agree to recommendations in
before we do so, Councillor Lindsay, can I just ask Councillor Jim Ray?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, was that all right? Okay, sorry.
All right.
I thought we were going to have another contribution.
No, he was one of the members of the committee, so
right.
He's one of the guys I was thinking. Okay, can you agree with the recommendations in page 77? Thank you.
Thank you. If we can now move on to the issue that we touched on at the beginning of this evening's meeting, pages 93 to 98, which is the report of the Cabinet Member for Resources on grants to parish councils for the municipal year 2014-2015. I invite Councillor Gordon Lindsay, the Cabinet Member for Resources, to present this report.
Right. This year, when we got a grant from the government, the government paid us a council tax benefit grant as a specified part of the as a specific sum to actually pay out the council tax benefit. Next year, however, they're going to pay a council tax benefit grant. Sorry, they're going to pay us a grant which will not specify the part of it that is due to pay council tax benefits. So in other words, we're going to get a grant and we're going to have to fund payments to parish councils out of our grant. Now, it's anticipated that the revenue support grant for 2014-15 will be 22% less than this year's grant. And it's therefore proposed, what we therefore propose is that District Council pay the parishes their share of a notional council tax benefit grant, but it will be reduced pro rata to overall reduction in council tax benefit grants. So in other words, what we're going to do is effectively saying that rather than keeping the council tax, that part of our RSG, of revenue support grant, rather than keeping that part fixed, here, I can say it was £100 last year, we're not going to keep it at £100 next year. We're going to reduce that £100 down by 22%, because with our overall grant we expect to be 22% less. So what that means is that the parish's grants will be reduced relative to last year, and you can see that in the papers here. But I don't see any alternative to tackling it that way.
Yes, Councillor Malcolm Kernock.
Thank you, Chairman. I wonder if the Cabinet Member has taken note of the autumn statement, because I believe that we had been anticipating that they would be top slicing the new homes bonus, and we were assuming that it would be something round about 35%. Now, the autumn statement has confirmed that they will not be top slicing the new homes bonus, and I'm wondering whether that can be used for parishes which have taken development, whether that new home bonus, which we're now getting, which we thought we wouldn't, could be used to compensate for that 22% reduction.
Councillor Lindsay.
Well, the answer to that is we have heard the Chancellor's autumn statement, and we do understand that the new homes bonus is not going to be slashed. But the fact is, our revenue support grant is going to be slashed, and I think the new homes bonus, if we're going to be giving it to parish councils, we're giving it to them as capital grants to help make improvements in their areas where development takes place, and we're not intending to use that to subsidise day-to-day expenditure of the parish councils.
Councillor Claire Vickers.
Thank you, Chairman. There's obviously a significant impact on some of the parishes more than on other parishes, and obviously how are they supposed to make up this shortfall of difference other than through their precept, unless they're going to cut services that they're providing? I think it's rather a sad day.
Councillor Kernock.
Thank you for that response. But a concern I have is I understand that the vast majority of our new homes bonus is being put into reserves. And this is the first I've heard that there will be a process of applying for capital grants for the parishes that have taken the development.
Well, given the uncertainty of government funding these days, and I think one of the things we're doing is we're putting the money into reserves, and then we're going to keep an eye on what's going to happen in the future. And obviously, if parishes find it too difficult to handle this situation in the future, then we can look at that again. But I mean, there is. I don't think you can be certain about government funding going forward, and I think what we're doing is by putting the money into reserves is probably a good thing, because we're going to find it pretty hard to actually balance the books in the years to come. I think next year will be okay, but thereafter we're going to be increasingly squeezed, and it's going to be harder to balance our books, and we've got to really save every penny we can.
Yes, Councillor Leonard Crosby.
Chairman, it's a question really for the Cabinet Member. I know that the Office's corporate resources are processing the various elements of the Oldham Statement as it affects us as a council and our finances. But Councillor Lindsay, I thought, made the statement that our government grant had been reduced further. I understood that in the Oldham Statement the government said that they wouldn't reduce government departments and local government this year, i.e. the year to come, financial year to come. Therefore, the grant is the same this year as it was last year. Am I right on that?
It's actually, there's no additional reduction from the reduction we were already informed about at last year's statement. So there's no further reduction on what they had already told us about. And the 22% of the revenue support grant is what they already told us about.
Councillor Francis Haigh.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm slightly confused by this whole concept, because for this financial year the government introduced a concept of spending power, where they take the revenue support grant plus the new homes bonus plus our share of business rates and a few other oddments of grant. So although the revenue support grant went down, overall our funding was supplemented by the new homes bonus and the business rates. I think we're being a little bit unfair on the parishes. As Councillor Vickers has just said, they will have to raise their precept if they want to deliver the same services. Thank you.
Councillor Gordon-Lindsay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that's the case, but I think what we're doing is the approach we're taking by putting the new homes bonus into reserves, I think, is the prudent one for now, and we can look at things in the future to see if we can do anything in the future. But I think at this time around, I think the most prudent thing to do is to stick to what we're doing and use the revenue, treat the revenue support grant as what it is. It's a sort of more permanent grant, whereas a new homes bonus could cease in 2 or 3 years' time if a government changes, for example.
Can I just ask, are you all agreed then that recommendation little one on page 93 of the agenda should be adopted? Thank you. If we can move on to pages 99 to 108. This is the report of the Cabinet Member for Safer and Healthier District on the Horsham Town Designated Public Place Order. I invite Councillor Sue Rogers, the Cabinet Member, to present this report. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to start by thanking our Community Safety Officer, Neil Worth, for all the very hard work that he's done on this particular piece of work in bringing these papers to us this evening. This order, if approved by this Council this evening, will be a very important tool to be used by the police to address the anti-social aspect of street drinkers in Horsham Town. Now, we do have street drinkers, and their behaviour can have a devastating effect both on traders, both on young people who witness some of the behaviours, and on elderly people. This report, I do want to just correct something within the paperwork. Paragraph 3.3 doesn't draw reference to Horsham Park Ward. I wish to assure members that it was included within this consultation, and it was in fact the map which you will see in your papers on which we consulted and to which we had no comment or representations made at all. Other than that, I think a good summary has been put forward, and unless there are any questions,
I would move the recommendations in the report.
Councillor Peter Burgess.
So, sorry, slightly tongue-in-cheek. Is this going to apply to everybody who is drinking outside? Because another councillor and I, not a long time ago, at a very superb Oktoberfest with bands, and incidentally, could we have that back, please, because it really was good, were enjoying ourselves with a pint of beer side by side at the bandstand. Am I going to get nicked for that or not?
No, I'd like to assure Councillor Burgess that people will still be able to enjoy a drink, still be able to enjoy a glass of wine with the picnic. It's people that are behaving antisocially, and that is what the law will be for.
Councillor Helena Croft.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd just like to really support this. I think just to reinforce that this is a tiny minority of people that are causing disturbance. But if you happen to come across them or live near them, it can be very disturbing. And I think there's good examples that we've heard from the police locally who have seen these powers at work in Crawley and neighbouring authorities, where it really just puts them in a position of being able to deal with a situation effectively. So I would really support this.
Councillor Christine Costin.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, I fully support this, because more recently, yes, we've had a lot more cases of drunken behaviour in the middle of the day, around bus stops where you've got school children, mums, pushing their toddlers and in the prams, being sworn at and seeing unseemly things. I do think, yes, we do need to get a control of this. I know people are out there trying to help some of these people who have a drinking problem, but they shouldn't be disturbing people who are just going about their lives normally.
Councillor Roger Arthur.
Thank you, Chairman. Your eyes didn't even move then. It was amazing. You see what goes on everywhere. The question is relating to the cost. Is that really all it will cost? Will there not be an operational cost to the police? And if so, are they going to absorb that themselves? I mean, you could actually suggest, and we did, I think, discuss this at one stage, whether or not the publicans should carry some of the cost. But perhaps you would like to outline, whether there is, in fact, any additional cost.
Councillor Sue Rogers.
No, there isn't any additional cost. This is just an additional power that the police have at their disposal to eliminate this behaviour.
Fine. Councillor Stuart Ritchie.
Thank you, Chairman. I too fully support this measure, but I am concerned that it's being restricted to Horsham town centre only. Incidences of antisocial behaviour through excessive alcohol intake do occur in the rural areas, and I do understand the report says that there isn't the evidence there to support a similar order in the rural areas, but I would suggest that the Cabinet Member does return to this issue, because I am aware that there are concerns in the rural areas, and I think more work would be appropriate in that place. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. I mean, I'm happy to have a discussion if you think that this sort of measure would be appropriate in the areas that you're talking about. It's an important tool for the police to use, but of course, being drunk and disorderly in a public place is a criminal offence, and that exists continuously. This doesn't change that particular offence, nor do other Public Order Offence Act crimes. So this is just another tool where the police are able to seize alcohol and deal with the behaviour in a certain way. Now, we particularly chose to draw the map in the way that we did, incorporating all the town and the wards, because the research that we did actually showed that street drinkers get to learn where borders and boundaries are. And if for example, we chose an area that went through a road, the street drinkers all stand on the opposite side of the road and say, well, you can't touch us here. So that was very carefully drawn up and thought through in meetings that I had with Councillor Croft and the police. But it is just another tool. The laws that exist with regard to being drunk and disorderly, as I said, do apply, and if there is a problem, then we'll talk about it outside of this meeting.
Okay, are you all agreed that recommendations little 1 and little 2 on page 99 of the agenda should be adopted? Yeah. Thank you. We now move on to pages 109 to 147. The report of the Director of Corporate Resources on Constitution updates, the Code of Corporate Governance and Employee Code of Conduct. I invite Catherine Eberhardt, the Director of Corporate Resources, to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. The report that we have in front of us is updating two sections of our Constitution. Our Constitution is something that we need to keep continually under review. And a year ago, we looked at updating both the Procurement Code and the Finance Regs. And now we're looking at Code of Corporate Governance and the Employee Code of Conduct. The major change is actually in the Code of Corporate Governance. It's an area of the Constitution that hadn't been fully overhauled for a number of years and has fallen out of line with the annual governance statement that Councillor Holmes spoke to earlier this evening, that's prepared by the leader and the chief exec, reporting what we do on corporate governance. And it's an overview of how we actually apply the rules of corporate governance, and it follows the SIPFA guidance. And what we have in front of you here is actually putting in that SIPFA guidance, which is what we actually follow when reporting on our annual governance statement, and putting it into the Constitution. So usually we do prefer to give councillors track changes, but it is a 100% change. So the new Code of Governance, which is SIPFA's guidance for Code of Governance, is in the report, and then we did provide you with a link to look at the Constitution, which details what the existing Code of Governance is. And those councillors who are on AAG will see how familiar the proposed change to the Corporate Code of Governance is to the actual annual governance statement. And the second change that we have in front of you is an update to the Employee Code of Conduct. The major change to this document, and it is in track changes, shows that we removed a lot of legislation that was out of date, as it had been in for quite some time. We updated elements that related to employee relations. We also updated elements that talked about speaking in public and media protocol. And we updated elements on employment policies to bring them in line with the agreement we reached with the unions that was approved by Personnel Committee on the 31st of July.
Thank you. Any comments, contributions? In that case, are you all agreed that recommendations little 1 to little 3 on page 109 of your agenda should be adopted? Thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine Eberhardt. And now if we can move on to pages 149 to 158. This is the report of the Chief Executive on the Local Election Fees and Charges Scheme, and I invite Tom Crowley, the Chief Executive, to present this report.
Thank you, Chairman. As the report sets out, a piece of work has been undertaken across the county amongst all the returning officers, they're usually chief executives but not always, with our electoral administrators across the county to ensure that we can put in place a consistent and transparent set of fees and charges and a process to ensure that they are reviewed and updated regularly in a consistent, transparent and fair manner. What's proposed as part of this is that the county returning officer, who doesn't normally act as a returning officer, normally delegates the county council elections, for example, to his district colleagues, will act as the arbiter in this to make sure there's fairness and consistency and make a series of recommendations to each of the constituent chief executive stroke returning officers across the county. Happy to answer any questions, Chairman.
If there are no questions, are you all agreed that recommendations 1 to 4, there are 4 recommendations on page 149 of the agenda, should be adopted? Now we move on to pages 159 to 166. This is another report of the Chief Executive on Section 106 contributions for open space, sport and recreation, and proposed changes to terms of reference and membership of the Planning Obligations Panel. I invite Tom Crowley, the Chief Executive, to present the report. Councillor Haigh, do you want to wait until... OK. Please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to check procedure. When we're voting, it seems to be reduced to are we in favour and just a murmuring and a few people waving their hands. It doesn't look very democratic. Is that how we're supposed to be voting? Because I would have thought we should at least have the courtesy of having the option to abstain or to vote no. Some of these things are non-controversial, but for example, the parish grants, people might have wanted to make it clear that they were voting no. So could that be clarified? Thank you.
Well, I'm going to ask the Chief Executive who's going to make some comments on that.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. If it's clear, as is often the case from audibly sometimes, and from people putting their hands up, that there's a general assent to agree a recommendation, the Chairman doesn't have to ask if there are any against. If it doesn't appear clear, the Chairman will ask if there are any against. It's up to any member, if they want a recorded vote, to ask for a recorded vote, and if there's a recorded vote, that's when abstentions will be recorded as well as the yeas and the nays.
Yes, Councillor Haigh.
I think some of these issues don't need a recorded vote, but as I said before, I still think it looks undemocratic if it's just a murmuring, and we should, even if we aren't counting the votes or recording the votes, we should still give everyone the option to say if they're voting against.
Well, as the Chief Executive says, I take a sense of whether there is any unhappiness or dissent from the recommendation. And of course, if there was, if anybody had spoken against it and there was dissent, I would call a vote for both for and against. So I take the point, but I don't think we really need a formal vote on every item, particularly on a night like this when we've got a very long agenda to start with. But thank you for your contribution. Councillor Peter Burgess.
I'm sorry, sir. I do feel that it's in our best interests and will take very little time if we have, unless it's quite clear that all members have said yes, and as I said, it will take hardly any time, that we very quickly say those against and abstain. I personally was going to abstain on one thing purely because for a certain amount of time I was out of the room, and I think it gives a much more professional attitude at little time or cost.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess. I'll bear your comments in mind, but there have been occasions when I've popped up and asked for an abstention to be recorded, and that is open, of course, to any member. But I repeat that I don't think it's particularly sensible to have a formal vote on every item when there clearly hasn't been evidenced a contrary view. Right, now Councillor Sheila Matthews.
Chairman, I just feel it's fairer on the public that are sitting behind us, and they are following the debates, but they don't know who's voting and who isn't. And I think for clarification and openness, I think to have a vote, yes or no, quickly, as Councillor Burgess said, is in the best interest of for PR for this council.
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. I'll certainly bear that point in mind for future council meetings. Councillor Godfrey Newman.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's important that we respect the decision made by the Chairman of the Council. However, in the planning committees, certainly in the north, Councillor Mrs Kitchen has made it very clear to all of us that she requires a vote one way or another from every single member of that committee. But I just leave you with that decision that she has made, and I believe that is a legal requirement that we do so. Thank you.
Yes, I understand that, Councillor Newman, but of course the Planning Committee is a quasi-judicial body making quasi-judicial decisions where there is always a strong possibility of a judicial review of the decision made, and I think there may be more of a pressing reason there to have a formal vote on each application. Now, if I could ask Tom Crowley, the Chief Executive, to present this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. There were some questions raised earlier this week about the report, which is why I sent every member of the Council an email this morning seeking to clarify some of those issues. Just to recap on the background, in June of 2005, the Council set up a procedure for handling aspects of Section 106 funds, funds which weren't specific to a particular piece of infrastructure, say, or a facility on a particular site. And that process has included what's become known as the Planning Obligations Panel. And the panel has worked since 2005 successfully, in my view, on helping to make decisions on the allocation of community facilities funding, which isn't specific to particular sites in the agreements, the Section 106 agreements that generated the funding. And parish councils and other local bodies can apply for the allocation of community facilities funds, and is a well-worn process now that the Planning Obligations Panel goes through. About 2 years ago, the Business Improvement Working Group highlighted the fact that there was a pool of money which wasn't being administered in that way. And that was a pool of money that's, the abbreviation is OSSR, which I took a while to get my head round. It's open space, sport and recreation contributions generated through the Section 106 agreements, in particular developments across the district, where those funds aren't directed in the legal agreement to a particular site. Each legal agreement will specify the purpose for which that should be used, and we're talking here about open space, sport and recreation, and will also define the area which should benefit from the expenditure of that money. And the area has to relate to the area within which the development took place, because Section 106 agreements are about mitigating the impact of development. So the Business Improvement Working Group highlighted the fact that we hadn't really captured or put in place a proper process for dealing with that aspect of Section 106 funds. And I've explored the issue since then, and various steps have been gone through, and earlier this year, back in the summer, there was a series of consultations and letters that went out to parish councils and neighbourhood councils. And having been through that, I came to the conclusion that the simplest way of resolving this question of this sum of money, it currently stands at £717,000, this sum of money, or the individual funds that comprise it, the simplest way of dealing with that would be to propose that the terms of reference of the Planning Obligations Panel should be widened to enable this sum of money to be processed in the same way, exactly the same way, that the community facilities funds have been handled. And so that would be following an established procedure which is transparent and robust. I've also proposed in the report, and this is really a reflection of the passage of time since June of 2005, I've proposed that the membership of the Planning Obligations Panel should be updated. The original decision of Council 8.5 years ago specified a number of Cabinet members who should sit on that panel, as well as the Chairman and Vice Chairman of the two Development Control Committees. And I've proposed that the titles of those Cabinet members should be updated, because they've changed since 2005. And I've also proposed that an element of political balance should be built in, as is pretty normal with bodies that the Council sets up. This isn't a statutory body, so it's not actually caught by the law on proportionality, But I thought it would be consistent with the approach that's taken, for example, on advisory groups, which is why I'm proposing that a member of the minority group should also be on the panel. I wrote to parish councils and neighbourhood councils just about the time that the report was published, and if the council agrees these proposals this evening, I will write to parishes and neighbourhood councils again to update them. The final thing I'd like to say is to reassure anyone who's concerned that this might be a sort of smash and grab raid by, I don't know, the council wanting to move all the funds from the south of the district or what have you to the north. Each sum that's been collected within that 717,000 has come from a legal agreement that we are bound by, and each one of those legal agreements specifies the purpose and the area, and that area is normally the parish area, the area which should benefit from the expenditure. Happy to answer any questions, Chairman.
Councillor Ian Howard.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased to see this coming through. We need the changes, and obviously this 700,000 is going to be much better spent than sitting in the bank earning diddly squat. One thing we do have to be careful about is that in the past we have on occasion had money for an area, and our Parks Department have said, oh, we can use that for this park or that park, and that money has been spent quite legitimately, no problem on that, but without the consultation to the parish. So the parish have not known that that money is now no longer there. I know things are improving, but we have to make sure by the dialogue with the parishes that this doesn't happen in the future, which I'm sure will be covered in this. And then the greater dialogue we have with the parishes, they may have a better scheme than our Parks Department for spending the money, or they may not, and it's a matter of balance, obviously. But I am pleased to see it come through.
Councillor Claire Vickers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'd like to echo what Councillor Ian Howard has said, but also I'd like to thank the Chief Executive for his reassurance that the money won't disappear from the parishes that really need it, actually. And when they have lots of building going on, the 106 agreement is the bit that softens the blow and provides the community with the benefits that they really deserve. So I welcome his reassurance. Thank you.
Councillor Peter Burgess.
I'm sorry, I'm actually rather talking too much now, but can I just bring in something else on that, and that's the county council. Sorry to county councillors, but I've been to several North Horsham local county meetings where S106 has been talked about, and the impression that you get from these members is that they consider it's their money. Sorry, I know you don't think this, but it is the money of, it is not theirs, and I was there presently when this question was asked, and members were rather surprised that it wasn't their money. So I would echo the thing that where this money goes, with minor exceptions, is to the parishes who own it, I would suggest. And that if there's any movement for this money away from my parish or your parish, as the Chief Executive says, that the parish councils concerned are asked for their approval.
I have to say, Councillor Peter Burgess, that's not actually, doesn't accord with my experience, but others may wish to comment. Councillor Sheila Matthews.
Thank you, Chairman. As the current chairman of the panel, I welcome this review as it clarifies the situation and strengthens the process. I think everything should be clearly set out for the parishes. They are very aware of their requirement for the 106. They've nearly all got their plans mapped out for it anyway. But we can't have too much consultation with them so that they are aware of what is theirs. And I think Councillor Burgess is quite right. It is their money, and we look after it and we make sure it goes in the right direction. And members of the panel are very aware that it does have to benefit the community. That is our prime expectation of the use of that money. So I do welcome this, and I think it's It's something that's been long awaited.
Thank you. Councillor David Sheldon.
Thank you, Chairman. Just wish to comment on recommendation 2. The Chief Executive talked about political balance. This recommendation kind of assumes that Cabinet members are always going to be Conservatives.
Oh, yes. I think there's going to be a proposal for an amendment on that point. Yes. No, I'll come back to that. Councillor Jonathan Chowan.
Yes, Chairman. I should congratulate the present chairman of the panel because it has worked very, very well. I know it's been an issue. I think Councillor David Holmes has been chasing this money for many months, if not many years, to get it established. And this does give a clear opportunity for any grants or any dispersions of this money being easily identified to the parishes and then discussed amongst this group. And I welcome that we're going to have a much more balanced group. But in the few, yes, I think I've been attending now for 2 years since I became Cabinet member. I've never seen any controversy over it, and I think that the members have had a good and robust discussion on all these. Slightly as Cabinet member, I did prefer the original option, which was that it was going to be purely in the gift of the Cabinet member for Arts and Heritage, the dispersal of this sum of money, which I think it might have not been quite so democratic, but it would have been. Honestly, I can assure you, I would have been very generous to those areas that I thought deserved it. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Brian Donnelly.
The great difficulty I have with this was summed up by the use of the word by the Chief Executive of normally in the end of his very good speech just now. And throughout this whole debate, my analysis of this paper, which all of us, by the way, only have had a short time to view, my analysis of it is that the word normally and that vagueness creeps in everywhere, and I won't go into all my details. I must say at the outset, I do congratulate Chief Executive and officers over the past 6 years for improving the 106 protocols. It's a vast improvement to when I first came to Council, and everybody enjoys it within reason. The parishes think it works and they know what's going on. I also know that Chairman will only allow me to speak once or maybe twice, so I do put on notice I'd like to make a counter proposal if it's necessary. Now, if we look at the recommendations, or reasons for recommendations, Little 2 says to ensure appropriate member input to the process. Well, that is, of course, rubbish, because it's a line more appropriate cabinet member input to the process. Secondly, under Little 3, it talks of to guide future decisions on the allocation of funds. Let's not forget these are parish funds. So the first point that's come out several times is that these are parish funds. They are not Horsham's funds. They are parish funds. The word normally was used in the context of that normally the parish funds would be used in the parish. In other words, normally means they may not be, and Councillor Howard in fact made that very clear. So I find it absolutely disgraceful that we're taking away from the parishes the funds that they have earned as a result of the housing that they put in place. Now, the other, as I said, I've been very happy with the 106 protocol. I think it's excellent, etc., etc. But with this paper, it made me then, of course, look at, for example, the composition. Now, under this new protocol, here's what could happen. A cabinet member could have a project somewhere in Ward A. He needs money, and I have sympathy with the cabinets because they ain't got much money, and it is very difficult. And, of course, in Ward B, like Pulborough, there's 162,000 floating around, and that would be very nice to move into his project in Ward A. So it'll go then to the Planning Obligations Panel. The Ward B peoples who are, use the word own, it's not the strongest word, all right, but they will be, as consultees, invited to come along and give their opinion. They'll say, we're not happy with our money going from Ward B to Ward A, and they'll be told, well, sorry, you're only a consultee. Meanwhile, on the panel, you've got the cabinet member who is pursuing this proposal sitting voting. And, of course, he's got several other cabinet members, him or her, on that panel. And therefore you have a weighting which is not robust. It is not transparent, it is not democratic, and is the theft of parish 106 monies. I was contacted by my parish councillor this week when they saw this, and they're terribly alarmed. They were contacted by other parish clerks, and there is real concern that this is theft, as the Chief Executive said earlier, of the monies of the parishes. And it is also, as I say, loading that panel in the most undemocratic manner. So I personally think that this should be pulled tonight in order that we can all have another little look at it, that the Chief Executive can be given a longer opportunity to convince us of its correctness or otherwise, and bring it back to the next council meeting. I really believe we have not been given a proper opportunity to fully understand what's going on. And I know I might be a bit thick, but I certainly don't understand this process.
Councillor Donnelly, do you have a seconder for your proposal? Right. OK, Councillor Liz Kitchen, do you want to speak now?
No, I'm happy to leave it as has been proposed by Councillor Donnelly. I would like to add that I entirely agree with what he said.
So there is a proposal to postpone consideration. Would you like to sort of word it? To delay decision for further consideration.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Yes. OK, I'm just going to ask the Chief Executive to make a comment or two.
Yes, thanks, Chairman. Just again, hopefully to clarify a number of things. I think the starting point that members have to remember is this fund, the 717,000, is a collection of smaller sums of money that have been collected over many years and secured through individual Section 106 agreements. That's the starting point. Those agreements are binding upon this council and the landowner and the landowner's successors, and we've generated funds through those agreements. Each of those agreements specifies the purpose for which the sum of money should be used, and here we're talking specifically about open space, sport and recreation funds, and also specifies the area which should benefit from the expenditure of that fund. Now, my use of the word normally is that normally that will be spent within the parish within which the development took place. The normally comes from the Section 106 agreements themselves, because they do not, most of those agreements do not tie down a specific location to being it has to be within the parish. But the parish, the location of the development, must benefit in a tangible way. And it's conceivable that, for example, you might have one or two or indeed three parishes agreeing between themselves that the location of a particular facility might be in parish A and funded by contributions that have come from parish A, B and C. So that's where normally comes from. The Section 106 money, we have the responsibility as the local planning authority. First of all, we collect that money, we hold that money, we have a responsibility to ensure that it is properly spent. One of the risks that we face, if we don't put in place pretty rapidly a procedure, because as has already been pointed out, this has been going on some time now, trying to get to the point where we have a robust procedure in place, there is a risk that we could face further challenges from developers who want to seek their money back if it's not spent within defined periods, and some of the agreements have such defined periods. My view of the panel and the way it works, and members this evening have acknowledged that, has been running for 8.5 years, dealing with community facilities funds, dealing successfully with community facilities funds, and my conclusion in making this set of recommendations to you this evening was it works well in a very similar area, community facilities funds that aren't site-specific. It's worked well, and it seems to me that it should work equally well in future to help allocate the Section 106 funds for open space, sport and recreation.
Right. We have a proposal to defer. Perhaps those who are going to speak to the deferral would like to... David Holmes, I've got you. Councillor Holmes, I've got you down.
It was on a different point, sir.
Right. Councillor Leonard Crosby?
It's on a different point to the deferral, but I was going to ask you, Chairman...
OK, if I can take the deferral proposal first. Councillor Godfrey Newman?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to support the the concept of a deferral, because, quite frankly, I'm a bit confused. I mean, I do remember many years ago, especially for North Horsham, when it was still being developed quite considerably, there was one Section 106 agreement which related to Earl's Meadow, and that's the play area. And I'm sure Peter remembers it, yes. And there was an issue about that as to how the money was to be spent. The actual legal agreement said Earl's Meadow, but the then Chief Executive agreed that it could be used throughout North Horsham parish area for refurbishment and so on of the play areas. In fact, his view at the time was that once they got the money, it's really up to them as to how they spend it. What I'm seeing here is that they're being told, if you're not spending it, you're losing it. And I'm pretty concerned about that, and I will definitely support the issue, because looking at Pulborough with potentially £163,000 lost to, I don't know, one of the 3 or 4 items that's mentioned in the report, I would be pretty well fed up with it as well. If we're going to try and get this thing properly organised, we need to come back to Council with another way of looking at it, which could well be you've got 5 years to decide what you want to do with the money, or this is the money you've got, you need to spend it because you're running out of time. But to have the decision that we're being asked to make at the moment, I think is a bit premature.
Councillor Francis Haigh.
Thank you, Chairman. I support the deferral. I think we need to spend a little bit more time making sure this document is correct and satisfactory for the parishes, and that they're happy with it. It will help to build their confidence in what we're doing as a district. So I fully support it. And I note we do have Council on the 22nd of January, so perhaps we can bring it back then.
Councillor Jonathan Chowan.
Chairman, I apologise earlier if I was slightly flippant about the issue, which has now turned out to be something even greater. The Planning Obligations Panel has been working for 8 years and dealing with all the other applications, and we've had no issues. Nobody's come forward to us. In fact, I'm surprised how few members come to the planning obligations to actually speak for their parishes. And it's very good when they come and do that and give up their time and come and represent their parishes on this grants of money. I see that with Councillor Donnelly, we have asking for £71,000 on Monday for Pulborough. I hope he will come along and speak for his parish at that moment. But we haven't had an issue. But what has stood apart, and Councillor David Holmes has brought this up, has been this 106 money, which is regarding to open spaces. And the issue on open spaces is quite complicated. You can have a parish which has the money but not the land, and you have a parish which has the land and not the money. And they can be close to each other. My parish depends on Henfield for a lot of its facilities, because that is where these have been built. And we know of Bramber and other areas which depend on Stenning for their facilities. Pulborough has a lot of money. It's had a lot of money for a long time. I know they have issues regarding sport and recreation. Why haven't the local members done anything about it and come forward with a project to have used up this money? It hasn't happened yet. Now, what we have got is in Horsham Parish, why are everybody obsessed with boundaries and silos? Why do they want to stay within their areas? Why can't they look more across the whole parish, the whole village and the whole district? Now, we have in Horsham where we have a lot of money in certain areas, but the need is somewhere else. The people don't know that there are these barriers. They wander across them. They don't know. There's 4 good projects in this paper which have highlighted, which we're thinking of doing. These projects will not happen otherwise. And this is addressing areas which are... These people don't go and play cricket in one ground from one parish. They go across these barriers. And what we are saying is, here is a group which for 8 years have been doing it, which we want to strengthen by having an India. It's appalling that there's no one from the opposition party already on that. I don't know how that's been allowed to get away. I'm surprised David's allowed it to go away for so long and hasn't been on to us. And that should be addressed. And as far as the balance, this has been working, and we haven't had other people there. I'm slightly upset, I have to say personally, that people think that we're up to something and that cabinet members are going to over-influence it. I'm going to over-influence it to the sense that I think some of the projects coming forward are really important. And I can stand up quite happily in the forum of public opinion to say these are really good projects for their area, and if we have got funds to do them, let's deliver them. Because, can I say what we don't want, is we do not want any more play areas. We've got 70 of them coming up, 30 grand a time, have all got to be replaced in the next few years. This is serious money which is coming from our budgets. This is budgets that you have got to find money from either capital or revenue. We do not want any more of those. We do not want to have the best bus shelters in one area of the district and in another a crying need for some sports or open and recreational areas. This is such a huge step forward. I just ask the Council, look, you've trusted us for this long to deal with one section. This other section has just stood moribund. Trust us, this group, chaired by an independent, with more independents on it, to carry forward this project. And if it doesn't work, you can always stop it. But now for members to start, who haven't been involved up to now, to start picking up on this at this late stage, when this is such a huge step forward. This was just nowhere. Nobody knew about it. David Holmes has been going on about it for years. And this is an opportunity to take this process forward. And if you don't trust us, well then, for heaven's sake, just vote us out. Thank you.
Now, Councillor Andrew Baldwin, is this on the deferral? Because I want to deal with Councillor Donnelly's proposal for a deferment of consideration of this issue. Anyone else wants to speak on that? Councillor David Holmes.
Yes, as has been said, I've been trying to get the use of this money regularised for a long time. A lot of people don't realise that we have a document, a SPD, planning obligations document, and if you have got a housing development being built, it defines exactly what the 106 money should be. You put the number of rooms in and the status of the rooms and things like that, and then out pops a figure for community facilities money and a figure for open space money. And the open space money always comes out about 4 times the amount of community facilities money. So it's been daft that we've had a procedure for dealing with community facilities money, but not for open space. So that's one point you need to know. The other point is that this £717,000 that we've been talking about, it comprises, on the one hand, some quite large sums. For example, just related to one development in Paulborough, there's 136,000 for Oddstones. For